This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi there everyone, I'm Cameron Harris and welcome back to In Range episode number 5. Today we're going to be talking about breakfast, most important meal of the day. Now, one thing that's very important to keep in mind with any meal, but especially true with breakfast, is you want to keep a very good balance between your carbs and your protein. Now, that's important because carbs and protein have a very interesting relationship. What protein does is it slows down the rate at which carbs are absorbed into your system. Now, this is good because the insulin then has time to catch up to the carbs and keep your numbers where they should be. But if you don't have any protein, you're just carbs, or a lot of carbs and very little protein, then the carbs just shoot straight through you like crazy. The insulin doesn't have time to catch up, and then you end up going low, which we want to avoid at all costs. So that's something very important to keep in mind. If you're having something like, say, cereal or any kind of sugar, a really sugary breakfast, you want to make sure you balance that out with something like eggs, cheese, maybe some turkey sausage would be a good idea, something like that. So now let's take a look at some really good choices we can make for food items for breakfast. So here are some good elements that could very easily make up a decent breakfast. Why don't we start with cereal, because cereal is a little bit tricky. So here's some just regular old Rice Krispies, and checking on the nutrition facts, 1/4 cup, 29 grams. So about 2 carbs for a bowl of this, plus milk. You always got to remember to add maybe a 1/2 carb for the milk, depending on how much you put in. Now, the Raisin Bran is a little bit different. If you look at that, 1 cup, so 1/4 cup less, is 45 grams, which is 3 carbs. So a big difference there. Always check. And most cereals tend to be a little bit high on the carb scale, so you want to just always be mindful of that. Now, if you did go with something like that, it would always be a good idea to, like I was saying earlier, balance that out with some protein, whether that be eggs are great. You can scramble them, you can fry them, hard boil them, soft boil them. Turkey sausage is also great because that has a lot of protein in it. Now moving on down the line, we have some toast. Now you can go with a regular toast. This is actually some raisin bread toast. These are great, and this particular brand, if you look at it, 1 slice, 18 grams of carbs. It's about the same as a regular slice of bread, so you're not losing anything. Waffles. If you go with something like a whole grain waffle, particularly smaller ones, they can be, for example, these 2 waffles, 2 carbs. So 1 carb per waffle, that's fantastic. Syrup, if you go with regular syrup, it's like pure sugar with a little bit of liquid mixed in. This stuff here is sugar-free maple syrup. Always check and see. This, 1/4 cup, is 11 grams of carbs. So it's not completely free. If you're going to be drowning your waffles in this stuff, you want to just kind of use this as a guide. But just always be mindful of that. Always check and make sure. English muffins, always a good choice. Similar to toast in that I believe one of these, one muffin is 24 grams, so a little bit more. It depends on what brand you go with. These are great, a little bit of butter and peanut butter. And on the subject of peanut butter, always remember, when you're buying peanut butter, always go with the all-natural kind. If you go with something like the regular ones like Skippy that you see, those have a lot of sugar added to them. Whereas the all-natural ones, it's just basically peanuts and a little bit of oil. If that's the case, those will be completely free. You won't have to shoot up for those at all, which is always a good thing. Also, you can always use with toast and English muffins and all that, jam. But again, similar thing to syrup is that if you go with the regular jam, a lot of carbs really quickly. But if you go with the sugar-free kind, this is pretty much free. A tablespoon is 5 grams. So if you have just a little bit of this, it's going to be completely free. You can have a little bit more and just shoot up maybe 1/2 carb or something like that. Now to drink. Orange juice, you want to be kind of careful with this stuff because it does have a lot of sugar in it just naturally. One of these bottles is 27 grams, so about 2 carbs worth for just this. That's not to say you can't drink it, just be mindful of that. If you're going for something with a little bit less carbs, you could always go with something like tea or maybe some coffee if you're into that kind of thing. A little splash of milk with this. And if you're into sweetener, regular sugar, it's sugar. It's going to have a lot of carbs. Something like Splenda is a much better choice. I like Splenda. That's just me. I think it tastes pretty much exactly like sugar. I can't really tell the difference anymore. And yet it's completely free. Some people even bake with this stuff. It's really good. And I am a big fan of soy milk. Now, not such a big fan of the regular soy milk. That's just me. This is chocolate soy milk. And I have this almost on a daily basis. It has about the same carbs as milk. Just a touch more, but not very much. And it also has extra protein, antioxidants. It's very good for you, and low in carbs, particularly when you compare it to regular chocolate milk, which, again, those carbs can add up pretty quickly. So those are some really good basic items. Let's go wrap this up. Now, there are some things that you need to be mindful of with breakfast. In particular, if you're having a high-carb meal, say you're having pancakes or cinnamon rolls or some kind of pastry, you want to be very accurate when you're counting your carbs. This is really difficult with high-carb foods because they can be deceptive. You might think that a cinnamon roll this size, just by looking at it, is only 2 carbs, but it could very easily be 3 carbs or 4 carbs. This is especially difficult if you're having pancakes because the carb count of the pancake depends on the size. Now, this is a good general rule to use. If we look at our pancake analog here, this is a 4-inch circle. This is about the size of a typical 1-carb pancake. So for every 4-inch pancake you have, it's going to be about 1 carb. If you're making them yourself, it's a good idea to just shoot for this size if at all possible. That's not always going to be the case if you're having them in a restaurant, for example, where the pancake's the size of the plate. But you can usually gauge pretty easily. If you just use this as a model, you might think, okay, this pancake is twice this size. It's going to be 2 carbs. Also, if you're having a very high-carb meal, and this is true of any meal, not just breakfast, it's sometimes a good idea if you're using insulin to give yourself that insulin before you start eating rather than after. This gives the insulin a head start. It kind of lets it establish itself before the carbs start rushing through your system, and it helps keep your numbers lower. So I hope you found this episode useful. If you want extra information on this show, like show notes and all that good stuff, you can visit our website at www.harwoodpodcast.com. Be sure to check out our forums while you're at it. You can post questions, comments, interact with other viewers of this show, as well as myself, of course. And also, if you want a sneak peek at what's going on behind this show, as well as all the other shows on our network, be sure to follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/harwoodpodcast. I'll catch you guys later. Good luck staying in range.